Welcome to Inside the Upside Down from Haunted Road Media, where tonight we're talking about our own UFO encounters. Welcome to Inside the Upside Down from Haunted Road Media. I'm author and ghost historian Mike Ricksecker. With me, as always, is Shana Wankel, our chat Shananigator from Edge of the Rabbit Hole, and a fantastic writer herself.
I'm working on it.
Well, you have some stories in our various books, so you are a writer.
Got to write my own book.
Okay.
It's going to happen.
It will happen. It will definitely happen. So, yeah, UFOs, extraterrestrials. I'm even going to throw out there some NSA secrets. So, more on that as we go. Shana was hearing some of the stuff earlier. She's like, oh, my God.
I was like, yep, we're going to get shut down, and Mike's going to show up missing, and...
Maybe they overheard us earlier, and that's why the first show was such. Oh my God, we really do thank Christopher Peters for coming out. I had a lot of fantastic information, fantastic story. Of course, he has a wonderful Hollywood pedigree, being the son of John Peters and Leslie Ann Warren. His stepmother was Barbara Streisand. Well, I say was, but still is. So cool stuff, and it just buffered and was like nuts for the first 40 minutes of the show, and so we apologize for that. Can already see nice green light here, nice healthy stream. So I think it's something in the area that is just bogging us down until about that time.
Yep. So I'm just gonna have to go door to door and be like, "What are you doing between the hours of 8:30 and that's
8:30 and about 9:10. Yeah. Central time. So
I'm gonna do a flash like, what were you doing between the hours of 8:30 and 9:10 on Tuesday nights?
Whatever it is, stop.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about. Basically, because we just had Christopher on there talking about his own extraterrestrial experiences, I figured, and I had this show idea for probably a good month and a half, and then Andrea introduced me to Christopher basically via email, and it was like, well, we're just going to have to hold off on the UFO show until we have Christopher on, and it'd be a nice piggyback onto it, because I knew we were going to talk about his experiences. I figured you guys might want to know a little bit of something about ours, because we have had them. We're not really a UFO extraterrestrial channel. We've touched on it here and there, like we had John D'Souza on. Andrea, of course, talks about that stuff. But we are primarily, of course, ghosts and hauntings and supernatural, paranormal, and we've talked fairies. So if we've talked fairies, why not UFOs? So, sure. And Shauna's like, okay, whatever. She's had 2 experiences.
Yep.
You want to talk about one of them?
Yeah. Well, my very first one was when I was in college. So this was about in the year 92, 93, maybe. And for those of you that are familiar with the Illinois area that I hail from, Lewis and Clark College in Godfrey, Illinois, which is very close to Alton. And I was there from like 7 o'clock in the morning until about 9 or 9:30 at night. So my father, after I told him about my experience, thought maybe it was just exhaustion. But since there were other people involved, he kind of had to throw that idea out. So I'm driving back. It's about 9:30 at night, and I see some other people parked alongside the highway just outside of Jerseyville. And I'm like, what's going on? And didn't see any emergency responders or anything. So I was like, well, it's obviously not a wreck. There's just people standing around. So I'm like kind of casing the joint out, looking around. And I saw something. I happened to glance up, and I saw something just kind of hanging out up there. It wasn't moving or anything. It was just kind of still. So I was like, okay. So I parked over, pulled my car off the road, and I get out. And we're all standing there watching this, whatever it is. And all of a sudden, it goes from motionless to just
zooming across the sky?
And it was just gone. I mean, you could not see anything. And there's some of them, like, ducked, not knowing what it was going to do. If it was going to come back in the same manner it came in. But yeah, everybody's like, oh my God, what was that? It was aliens, but was it? Because, I didn't have anything else to compare it to, but it was definitely an unidentified flying object, which is what a UFO is. So no little green men or anything like that, but just...
You didn't get abducted?
No. No, but it was just there, and then it was just gone so fast.
And that fast?
And just
about how big
boom.
Was it?
I mean, it didn't seem to be as high up as planes usually are, and you can see detail with them. It didn't really have any, bells and whistles on it. It was just this white kind of lit up thing. And then, boop, it's gone.
Boom, gone. Betty Lang is asking, did it take you a few minutes to realize what you saw?
Yeah, I mean, I started talking to these people that I'd never met before in my entire life, and we're all like, what the hell was that? And I was like, okay. So then the whole way home, I'm sitting there watching the sky again, thinking, oh my God, it saw me down there. Now it's going to follow me. And I live near all these cornfields. I'm so going to get abducted. It's going to, scoop me up and nobody's going to see me again.
Yes, that's right. Aliens plus cornfield equals abduction.
Yeah, it totally does. So
Donna's saying that she's glad you didn't get probed.
Yeah. Or did I? Maybe I'm one of those
They might have just
people.
wiped your memory.
Right. Now I'm in trouble
People
because
report
I'm
that
remembering
stuff.
it.
Yeah.
I'm remembering it, so now I'm in trouble.
Right.
But so I got home and I told my dad. He was like, "Have you got any sleep?" I was like, "Dad, no, I'm serious." And I'm not the only one. There was other people.
Yeah, because you said that all these people were parked
Yeah,
off, so they saw it there for a while.
So yeah, they were there. With their. Some of them have their lights on, some of them have their lights off, but those people have been sitting there, for a minute. So,
did they tell you anything about like what was going on before you showed up?
Yeah, like they were talking about. It's like I was just driving and I just happened to look up and seen this thing sitting there and I wasn't moving, And so I was like, "What is it? I got time." So they just pulled over.
Right.
And then pretty soon someone else came along. It's like, and the first one had stopped, said they had their flashers on, and so another person stopped to see if they needed any help. And then that's how it, next, and then all these people, there's like 2 cars, people now with their cars alongside the road out of the car standing. So it's drawing attention to other motorists. And now, there's like 7 or 8 cars. So, and then I went to sleep that night and I woke up the next day and I replied to my dad. He goes, well, it would be pretty arrogant for us to think that we're the only planet in the solar system or that there aren't any other solar systems. There's other solar systems. So why wouldn't there be other planets and why wouldn't there be other forms of life out there? He goes, I totally believe in aliens.
Yeah, just within our own galaxy, there's billions of solar systems. So just statistically, they're out there.
Yeah.
Even from, not to get into too many of the, technical details, but the Earth is about 4.5 billion years old. The universe, they say, is close to 14 billion years old, which means a lot of other galaxies and solar systems and whatnot out there have had 8 billion years of a jump on us, more than that. So yeah, the possibility is, they could have been around for, another 5 billion years more than us. So, who was it? Andrea was asking, so do you think this was of alien origin?
I can't say that it was, but I can't say that it wasn't either, I have not seen anything in the sky move that fast before. Not before that, not after that. Well, actually, that's not true because I have a second.
You have a second one. It involves the goldenrod, I believe.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So, but I didn't have anything else to compare it to. All I know is it didn't behave like a plane. It wasn't a meteor, Well, that was one of the first things I started looking up, trying to figure out.
Check to see if there are any flights or something in the area. Yeah. People will check with like local Air Force bases to see if they had things going on, and that's a prudent thing to do. And try to eliminate different possibilities like that. Weather balloons, which was always the main culprit back in the day.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of people, and I remember hearing something about it on the radio. Asking, someone on talk radio in the morning because
so a lot of other people had seen it.
Yeah, that was all that was on my drive to school in the morning. It was talk radio. So, and there was other people talking about it. Radio stations been getting calls in. Hey, did you guys hear? Do you know what's going on in the area and what was going on last night? Was there any like meteor activity last night? Was there although I've seen many a meteor in my day. Comets, and just falling stars and this and that and the other. It just didn't behave like that. So I just always classified it as a UFO because I couldn't put a positive ID on it. It's not like it landed and an alien came out. So I'm pretty sure it was alien in origin.
All right. So just a couple quick things. So we are simulcasting on Periscope and Twitch. So for those that are on those platforms, if you're wondering about the chat that we're talking about and all of that, it's because we are primarily on YouTube. So that's where the main broadcast is, but we do simulcast out to those other platforms. And this will later on be a podcast out there on like everywhere, iTunes, TuneIn. We're now on Spotify. So there's that. But I do want to. I'll eventually get into stuff like NSA. We want to talk about like some disclosure and things like that, and kind of where some of these different topics are heading. But what's interesting is we'll get to the goldenrod story too, because I love the tie into the goldenrod, especially since this is the anniversary. Tonight is the anniversary of when we first met out on the goldenrod.
Yep.
Actually, I guess we met at the landing. But it was the goldenrod that brought us together, and so this is an anniversary of ours where it was the first day that we actually met in person.
Right.
Yeah. 3 years ago. I probably no, it would have been a little bit later. I was like, do you want me to turn around? In any case, so we'll get to the goldenrod here in a little bit. But what's interesting is, I've always believed that there's aliens out there, kind of like I've always believed in ghosts. I always, again, statistically, there's got to be something out there, and I was at NSA for a while. We'll talk about that in a little bit, and so I did see some stuff that's like, okay, so it kind of backed up my belief, kind of further cemented when kind of like when I first got onto Facebook. That a friend of mine that what I loved about when I first got on Facebook is all this old high school and schoolmates and all that stuff. You were able to connect, and so talking with people I hadn't talked to in years. There's one woman who's very level-headed person. Saw that I was into the paranormal and all that, and so and she would never make up anything like this. That she admitted to having a UFO encounter. She's like, I don't tell anybody, but since you're into this stuff, I'll tell you. Boom. And I was like, from her, I was like, okay, you're kidding me. So even though that I've believed other people, some people are just a little out there, but I have believed other people. I've seen some documentation of stuff. But I'd never actually seen one myself until this past December. It took 44 years. Heading out to my son's college graduation out in Oklahoma along I-44 in Missouri, and just driving along. I was listening to an audiobook or something at the time. And, they're just kind of these red lights, 2 red lights, just kind of hovering in the air off to the side. It was on the other side of the highway. And they're just hovering there. And I'm seeing it out of the corner of my eye. And I look, and it's hovering there. And all of a sudden, just took off like a shot. I was like, holy crap. Mm-hmm. It wasn't that big. Really not. The lights were kind of, elongated like that, sort of red, and they just and then gone. And I was like, I think I just saw a UFO. After all these years, like, all right, check that one off the list. There we go. Again, wasn't abducted. There are no little green men. I didn't lose time. None of that stuff happened that some people report. But yeah, that was my very first UFO this past December. There we go. Huh. So now you and the goldenrod. This is kind of an interesting one.
Yeah, so it was a very clear night. And I mean, no clouds. It was a little bit brisk. And I was there with a group called TIP, the Illinois Paranormalists. And I asked one of the girls if she wanted to climb up on top of the boat because the view of the sky is amazing, especially on a clear night. She was like, yeah, sign me up, And she was a photographer. So she took her camera and she took some amazing shots of the sky and just incredible. So she took a few shots. And she's like, man, she goes, oh, look, there's a falling star, So then she laid down on the boat, laid down on the roof, So I followed suit. I laid down, and so we're laying down there, and she's like, "Man, you were right," And then started seeing some more, falling stars. She's like, "Oh my God, is there a meteor shower tonight?" I'm like, "I don't think so." She goes, "Well, there's a lot of them." So we're sitting there, and then all of a sudden we see this other one that's a little bit bigger than the rest of them, and it started its streak like a falling star, but then it made a hard 90-degree whatever, and then another one, and then it was gone. I'm like,
wow.
And so she looked at me, she goes, I don't think that was a falling star. I don't feel like we're alone tonight. But I mean, the sky was just huge and just stars everywhere, and we saw it, make the right angle, and then poof, away it went. But it was just like the last time, it shot out of the picture, out of the frame so fast that, where to go? Where did it go? So, yeah, it's like, wow, okay. So then we started talking about UFOs. She was like, yeah. I've seen some random, stuff up in the sky that I'm just like, it's probably a naturally occurring whatever. And she says, but that was kind of cool. She says, I wouldn't mind seeing that again, So we laid up there for a little while and until it just got too cold. And saw many falling stars, meteors that night. So there must have been a meteor shower that night that I was just not aware of. And but we never saw that same activity again. So just that one time.
Interesting. And there is a lot of people down in the chat right now that are also saying that they've seen some different things. Betty Lange, Andrew Cox. Andrew Cox is a trucker, so absolutely. And I think a lot of people have, and it's interesting to me as to how there's this large contingency out there that is still just deny. People talk about, disclosure and all this, and, the big question is, why keep it? I don't think at this point anymore there's going to be a crisis of faith. I know that was a apparent concern for a while, and it made sense back then that, you throw something out there like that, and we're not the only planet, when a lot of people's faith, they're telling them we're supposed to be the only, at least according to what they've been taught, but if you actually look more closely in the Bible, it's no. That can extend elsewhere, but I think we've become a lot more open as a society these days, where yeah, it's not going to destroy people's faith, that people will still believe. I mean, shit, I still believe. And, you know, I also believe that there are aliens out there, you know? So it is what it is. So I'm seeing in the chat right now, Andrew is saying it was right above the sky outside my California home. So another one, okay. XVI6, I've seen 2 gray beings that were together. Yeah, people talk about the grays too. And so there's a lot of talk about interdimensional beings. We've talked before about, you know, shadow people, you know, if those are interdimensional beings, and if aliens are interdimensional beings, are shadow people possibly aliens? You know, so, but still, you get into, you know, a lot of the cover-ups. You know, there's big questions about Roswell. You know, was it a UFO crash? And they try to say, well, it was a weather balloon. You have others that are saying, well, actually, it was, you know, military experiments or experimenting with Nazi technology or whatever. And, you know, so now it's covered up one or two ways, whether you believe the weather balloon or you believe the you know, the UFO crash, and it was actually this military stuff. So it's just, to me, crazy, all the different cover-ups and conspiracy where you could just say what everybody already pretty much knows.
Yeah. That
it's there. You've had 2 experiences. I've had my first one, but I pretty much already knew. You know, you have a lot of people out there, whether it's on, you know, YouTube, or you have, you know, you have some interesting shows out there. I mean, for all the, you know, people will say it's, you know, fanaticism or whatever, you know, ancient aliens. It does make you think. You know, if they're visiting us today and they're by far older than us and are coming here, why couldn't they have come 2,000, 4,000, 10,000 years ago? You know, given what we know about history.
Maybe they keep coming back because they're hoping to find intelligent life. Because there's certainly a lack of it in the world.
Yeah, Donna Gorton's asking, at least I believe this is straight from Donna, do you think that the ancient builders were alien? That's an excellent question, and I'm glad you asked. That's my pause to give me a moment. You know, I'm mixed on it. I'm not going to sit here and say that the aliens built the pyramids. I don't think the aliens built the pyramids. I think people built the pyramids. Were they using technology or know-how that they got from aliens? Maybe. All the research from Zecharia Sitchin, the Anunnaki, this book, The 12th Planet, all of that stuff. You know, from a lot of things that I've read the book, 12th Planet, and from a lot of the other things that I've researched, it seems like he was headed down the right path. He did a lot of great research, and yet some of it probably was feeding the narrative that he wanted to tell. And so kind of hard to know. So basically, did the Anunnaki come here and take, you know, apes to make a worker class us? You know, and that's basically the Sumerian legends, and you know, their history of their gods is that basically, you know, humans were a slave race, and you had Inky and Enlil, you know, kind of jostling back and forth there. And so it's interesting. It's very interesting. And, you know, it's possible some of that happened from a certain point of view. It's hard to really know, because those ancient myths, you know that there's a grain of truth in there. We talk about this all the time when we talk about history. There's a grain of truth in there. And the challenge is in trying to find out what that truth is. So, I was going somewhere with that, but I was trying to toss it off to you for a second so I could remember. It's like, Shana, we've talked about history before.
Yeah, I was just listening.
Just letting me go.
I was listening.
We'll just let Mike go.
Yeah, you were on a roll.
I was on a roll. Yeah, it's, you know, I mean, all this stuff is related. You know, Bible, Torah, it all dates back to the same stuff, you know. I mean, it's kind of an interesting thought. Abraham wasn't a Hebrew. He wasn't a Jew. He wasn't. But that is, you know, Abraham's like the big, you know, father of, you know, everything, right? He was a Sumerian. He came from this right there in the Bible. He came from the city of Ur. He was a Sumerian. So all of his stories, his upbringing, everything that he knows about are all those Sumerian legends about the Anunnaki and Inca and Enlil and all that stuff. That's what he grew up on. So is it any wonder that a lot of those tales that are in the Bible, you can kind of cross-reference with some of them that are out of the Sumerian legends as well, you know. So
I do hope if I get abducted someday that it's like in that 80s movie, Flight of the Navigator. Did you watch that?
Oh my gosh,
it's like
years
back
ago.
In the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he lost time or whatever, but he came back. His family was all older. But then I guess they finally, you know, at the end, the alien ship that he was flying around that he made friends with, they dropped him back off at the same time that they took him from and stuff like that. But that's sounds like a more fun way to be abducted, not some of the other movies that we've seen.
Yeah. Andrea commenting in there, I'm an archaeology major and I believe humans built ancient monuments without outside help. I mean, it's they very well could have done it on their own. What's interesting is that for a lot of that construction back then, we don't have the technology today to recreate it. Or it's very, very difficult, or we just came into the know-how to do it very recently. Yeah, how has it been for thousands and thousands of years? We haven't been able to reproduce this stuff. So, I mean, may or may not be with outside help. There's also, you know, theories out there about, you know, that there's an ancient part of our ancestry that's been lost. That you could really date it back to the flood. The flood is pretty universal. I mean, it's in almost every culture, that flood story. So it could very likely be that the flood wiped out a higher advanced, not having computers or what have you. And I think that's where a lot of things get kind of confused, is people will say, well, yeah, you know, there's a highly advanced civilization back then, and, you know, they didn't have automobiles and computers and stuff like that, but they were higher than the ones that came after them, very possibly because something like the flood, maybe it was the flood, volcano, whatever it was, wiped them out. And so those that were left over didn't have that know-how and had to start from scratch again and went in a different direction. And they're looking at these fantastic, magnificent monuments like, oh my God, how did our people before do that? We don't know how to do that now. And it's because those people that knew how to do it were wiped out. And so I think there's some great arguments that that are out there, you know, about, you think about it now, you know, if there was a massive tragedy to happen to the earth right now, I remember reading the book, it was called 1 Second After. It was basically like an EMP just hit the United States, and, you know, everybody lost basically like their electronics, anything that used a computer, whatever, it was just gone. Basically, we were sucked right back into like the caveman days almost. Who would survive that? You know, our society is dependent on going to the supermarket and having your car and computers and all that stuff. Who would survive it? It would be those living off the land right now. You know, people in third world countries would survive that. People in the big cities right now would not, because they don't know how to survive without their supermarkets and their, you know, cell phones and all of that. So
it's a good idea now to learn to get back to the basics.
Yeah, learn some basic stuff.
Just in case.
Yeah. Spooky. There was a major UFO scare in San Diego about 29 years ago. A huge green flying saucer hovered over over the 5 freeway. It finally shifted position. It was the Fuji blimp. Oh, that's funny. And yeah, there's false sightings like that. Absolutely false sightings. A couple of questions here from the chat. Jin Korgus asking, do aliens have female and males or something like that? I would say if they reproduce, probably.
I've never seen one.
Right.
I have no idea.
Yeah, without actually like meeting the alien race and asking them or studying them or what have you. I mean, that's all purely speculation. You know, there's people, there's supposed to be insiders that know about a lot of these different things or know aliens. And the insider thing, the quote unquote insider thing, and where, you know, people are getting, you know, their information from, it's the way you always hear it is, well, you know, I heard it from some insiders, you know, that know about this, that, or the other thing. And it's like, okay, how do I know it's reliable? Just calling them an insider doesn't make it reliable, you know? You know, I was watching some David Wilcock the other day, and, you know, I didn't like David at first. There was something about it I was like, I don't know. And he's kind of grown on me, you know, watching his stuff. He's a bit eccentric. Definitely a bit eccentric. But you know what? He has a good heart. And so it's like, okay, I can do it. He has a good heart. I think he gets a little eccentric at times. But I think he has some good stuff, too, and makes a lot of great points. And, you know, he has really studied a lot of different areas. So he's very knowledgeable. But he's been doing some live streams lately. And so while working on some stuff, I was popping them on. And he made a comment about an insider. This is where I'm getting to the NSA stuff. About an insider saying that there was this, and this is paraphrasing, that there was this place in NSA that it was called one thing, but it was I can't remember if he actually said what that one thing was supposed to be. I think he did, but it was actually an office dealing specifically with aliens, and it was on the 8th floor of NSA. This was from an insider. 8th floor of NSA. Well, I worked at NSA for a couple of years, and I will tell you that there are, at the headquarters of NSA there in Fort George G. Meade, Maryland, there are 3 8th floors because there's 4 buildings and 3 of them exceed 8 stories. So it's like, that doesn't tell me anything, and it makes me question the reliability of a statement like that. You know, if it was something like, you know, it was the 8th floor of the headquarters building, or, you know, there's the 2A and 2B buildings. Basically, they call them the Reagan buildings. It was built during his administration. You know, if you said it was 2A or 2B, you know, 8th floor, it'd been like, okay, cool, especially 2B, because that building is just freaking creepy. And I was telling Shana about some of this stuff earlier. That wasn't usually in that building. I was in the one that doesn't have 8 floors, which is the original headquarters building, and then they expanded and put other buildings in there. But we didn't usually do this. But if for some reason we had to park and come in the main entrance, or to go out to the squadron orderly room, I was in the Air Force, and the orderly rooms weren't in NSA. They were in what used to be barracks across the street. And so if we'd walk over there, it was a long walk, you know, or if you wanted to get some exercise and go out that way, whatever. But those times that we did come in that way, we cut through 2B to get to where we were at, those hallways were really creepy. Now, NSA already has some really creepy hallways. In fact, at the time, they had the longest hallway in the world, which I walked because we had to go that way to get to one of the offices that we serviced. But yeah, if they would have said, you know, 8th floor of 2B, I'd have been like, okay, cool. And that would have made total sense to me, because going in there, you know, you have these white, it was like raised subfloors for the hallways. So, you know, they got computers and stuff, but all the doors were just, you know, shut, locked. some of them heavily locked. It was like you were going like almost this very sterile, I don't want to say penitentiary environment because it wasn't like a jail, but it was just, if just think of something sci-fi, very sterile and just ominous at the same time, because it wasn't exactly bright. It was dark within these hallways, and it was like, oh my God. It's like, this is where they lock away all this shit. So if you would have told me that, then I'd been like, okay, you got me there. But just to say, yeah, 8th floor of NSA, it's like, no. It just, because there's 3 of them. There's 3 of them. You would have told me the basement, I definitely would have bought that. The basement is just this last one. The basement is definitely really interesting. So NSA is a location where all kinds of legends and lore associated with it. A lot of conspiracy theories coming out of there. They call it the Puzzle Palace. There's a lot of alien theories coming out of there, of course, like we're talking about. One of those, when you're working in there, is the basement. They talk about, like, serious. They talk about people that have been lost down there for years. And the one time that I was down there for any significant portion of time, I was taking a class. Actually, we were holding a class down in the basement for several weeks. I can't remember what the class was on. And it wasn't that we had to stray off too far or anything like that to get there. We hit the bottom and we kind of walked straight forward. And I think there might have been a turn in there somewhere. But I remember taking a glance down this one hallway, and they weren't exactly straight. There's some of them that were kind of slant ways and stuff too. You could seriously get lost down there. And I remember looking down this one hallway, and this one little old lady comes out of there, and I don't know how this thing like weirdly intersected. It was one of those that was kind of slant like, and she comes around the corner, kind of looks at me. And she would have looked that way because she was headed that way. She looked at me, and then turned back around. I kept going, and I was like, "What in the world?" It was like this was one of those people that were lost down there, because she was this little old lady. She was dressed like something straight out of the freaking 1950s. I think if I recall correctly, the building was built in the 60s, but she looked like she was out of the 50s. And yeah, I remember thinking, then this is one of those people that have been lost down there, or maybe it was a ghost, ghost of NSA, or maybe they're doing some time travel shit down there. I don't know, but it was freaking weird. That was like, that was probably the most creeped out I ever was at NSA. Was that moment right there, seeing that little old lady. It was weird. So let's see if you guys got any chance. Shauna's nervous. I'm going to get abducted this weekend or something, and I'll be gone. So, what do you think about Bob Lazar's claims about Area 51? This is from Robert. So, Area 51. Well, Area 51, I'll say, is not like Independence Day, because Area 51 is not an assault base. The movie Independence Day. Did you ever see that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Area 51 is not an assault base. Do I know of anything there about aliens or alien technology or anything? That's there's a lot of claims about Area 51 as far as aliens, alien technology, and all that stuff. What I will say about there's stuff out there and about and what have you. I can't really say exactly what. I just mentioned Independence Day, and so that movie comes out, watching it, you get curious, right? And you start doing a little poking around while you're there, and there's nothing that's like wide out in the open that you're just gonna see. The way a top secret security clearance works, which is what I had. I had TSS SBI, and basically all those letters are different compartments that you have access to, that also you have to have a quote unquote need to know on top of that. And so I didn't while I could get to and, technically had access to different things, it always came down to that need to know. So there were certain things that I could get to up to a point. Like I said, you're going to fish around a little bit. And so, yeah, you could see stuff was going on, but you couldn't get specifics, So it's not like I go fishing around within there and all of a sudden I see the alien body in a tank or, a photo of a UFO or what have you. But, you see a little bit of documentation and it's like something's going on with that. So that's about as much as you get unless you are directly working within there, which I wasn't. I mean, mine was a support role for the spies. So, see what else you guys have down here. Is Shana drinking herb tea?
At this time of night, always. I am drinking the Dandelion Super Herb Tea from Republic of Tea, which I purchased at It's Raining Zen, who also has t-shirts.
Yeah, so Shauna's I guess you're the first to get the It's Raining Zen t-shirt.
So, yeah, if you look on their page, I'm the first one.
Awesome. Yeah. They posted a pickup view on their page for that? Mm-hmm. Cool.
Should have. Yeah, he said he was going to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from Betty Lange, Mike and Shana, if you met an alien, what would you ask them, him, or her? I've kind of been running my mouth for a while. What would you ask them?
Can I ride in your ship? And if so, can I come back at the same time that I, got taken away in?
So can I get a joyride?
Yeah. When you guys die, are you like reborn somewhere else? Does reincarnation thing work with you guys? Or, do you see ghost aliens running around? Do you hear voices and you don't see others of your kind? I mean, do you guys see human spirits whenever you're around here? How do you...
And instead of a gray, you see a human?
Yeah, so... Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I want to know.
Those are great questions, actually. Their ideas on religion.
Yeah, I figure if human spirits aren't going to answer my questions, somebody better do it, because there's only one way to really, really find out. I'm just not ready for that yet.
No, all those are absolutely fantastic questions, because you wonder, is that type of ritualism, but basically religions are, do those sort of things happen elsewhere in the universe, or is it just like a human thing? It could very well be that they don't have any sort of deity, God, whatever, and they're just like, it's the herbs, man. I don't know. I mean, no, but it makes you wonder how, we already see within our own species across the world how diverse it is from culture to culture to culture, that now you take a being that's not even from Earth, that's been living elsewhere for millions or billions of years or whatever, and how their cultures are and how vastly different they may be. So those are all fantastic questions.
I've thought about this.
Yeah. Cool.
Maybe exposed to somebody that has answers someday, and I need to be prepared.
Yeah.
So you never know.
Well, there's always Dolores Cannon, who, with her past life regressions, some of those people had apparently alien past lives, if you believe in the stuff that Dolores Cannon did with past life regression, which we are going to be talking about past life regression next week when we have Rebecca Smuck on. So that'll be interesting. So let's see what else you guys had in here for questions, because when I was kind of monologuing, I wasn't checking the chat. So this is Kathy Siliento. Seems we have our own insider here. Well, not really. I was in the building for a little while, I will throw out there this challenge, though. I'll throw this one out there. You want to tell me that you want to sell me on an insider from NSA instead of 8th floor. I can't remember if it was January, February. I think it was February. Tell me the big shit that went down at NSA February 1997. If you've been paying attention, you're not going to be able to Google that shit. But if you're paying attention what the hell is going on within that building, you know, you got that much of an ear to the ground or whatever, you'd know. I want to see if anybody, I mean, I don't know. I mean, probably mostly our Mad Hatters out here, but if anybody else coming across this video happens to, fancy themselves an insider, I'd like to see if somebody could own up to that challenge. Shana has no idea what I'm talking about.
No, I'm not an insider. You're the only insider I know, and Oh well, that's not true. Maybe someone that we know that lives in Alton might know something.
Well, yeah, he might know something. I mean, I have a few little NSA anecdotes because I was in the building for a while, but that's about it, and probably a couple things up in Alaska.
Because he definitely has some stuff that he cannot repeat aloud, but some things he might be able to confirm or deny. So,
and that's fine, and that's what it comes down to in a lot of cases where there's stuff you know. And I told you one earlier that I'm not going to say on here. I'm not going to repeat on here. Because there's no way that would fly. And I didn't even give you all the information on that, but you can't. And it's not like it's dangerous shit. In fact, it's like I would say it and you'd be like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." But it's the nature of the freaking the way governments work, and it's not just the way government's doing shit now. It's the way governments have worked for all time. They don't want people talking about their shit. So when somebody starts to do so, even if it's not bad or malicious or anything like that,
they disappear.
That's right.
Yep. They're listening. They're watching you. They're watching the show right now. Yep.
So, per Andrew, what was your rank in the Air Force? I only made it as high as a senior airman. I was in for 6 years and was out. So, my path into the Air Force was really weird. Because I was originally supposed to go to college. I was all geared up for that. And I would have had probably almost any college of my choice. And I did the weirdest thing going into the Air Force. And I didn't go ROTC. I didn't go and become an officer. Because my friends that were going in were all enlisting. So I enlisted. And so, yeah, it was an interesting path to get in there. It's what's funny now is because I actually I wasn't fond of it, and it's not like I'm not proud to have served my country. I'm proud to have served my country, but the individuality that they try to rip from you just did not sit well with me. That you're part of a system, you're a cog in the wheel, and when you go through basic and all that, they strip that away from you, or at least they attempt to. And so, I adhered to that for a few years, and then this is like way off topic, but this happened. So it was actually when I was still there at NSA, and it's a story about my ex-wife, but it's jacked up. So she was having a rough pregnancy with my middle son Chase, the one that just graduated from college en route to saw the UFO. But I was in a class then. It was actually, the class was outside of NSA, but I was taking, it was a programming class, and I got a call that she was having a rough time. She was headed to the hospital, all this stuff, and it was a staff sergeant I was talking to. It wasn't my direct supervisor or anything like that, but he was another NCO that was there, and so he was like, just go ahead and go. And I was like, well, yeah, no shit, I'm gonna go ahead and go. And off to the hospital I went. So I get in there the next day. The NCOIC of our shop and my direct supervisor sit me down and give me a letter of admonishment because they said technically I was AWOL. Mm-hmm. Technically I was AWOL because this other staff sergeant wasn't my direct supervisor, even though I told him what I was doing. He told my supervisor and all that stuff, because I didn't, directly get the permission from my supervisor, and I just took off to the hospital to go be with, my wife at the time, who was having all these problems, that I was technically AWOL. They gave me a letter of admonishment, and my reaction was I fucking rolled my eyes at them. I rolled my eyes, and then they gave their looks right back at me was like, you just didn't.
The stuff movies are made of.
Yeah, but no, by that point I was sick of the bullshit. It's just crap like that. So I was happy when I got out. Happy to serve my country and have that quote unquote honor, whatever. Yes, great. It's awesome. My grandfathers were in the military. I had uncles that were in the military. Yes, it's proud to serve my country. But the bullshit, no. Yeah, that's crazy. I know. But I did have an Air Force Achievement Medal. So I had a lot of good things on my thing. I was a basic training honor grad. I had the Achievement Medal. I had good stuff along with it too. So it wasn't just that stupid letter, which was ridiculous. From Betty Lange, what do you think of Trump's Space Force? Honestly, I'm cool with it. What do you think? I mean, I've been kind of running my mouth for a little while. What do you think of Trump's Space Force?
I don't really think of Trump. I mean, I don't really think of politics in general, so I don't really care what's going on. And maybe that's stupid or whatever, but it just seems like none of them are really on our side. So it's just like they have their own thing and they can give crap less about the rest of us in the world. So they don't care about me. I don't care about them. It's a big mess.
Fair enough.
What they do is what they do. I don't really care anymore. It's just a big mess nowadays.
No, I totally get that when it comes to politics. Having spent a little bit of time playing around in the political arena, I totally get that. Trump's Space Force. I mean, isn't it? Does it strike anybody else as odd that we got out of the whole space program? We stopped going to the moon. I know that was expensive. We stopped doing the space shuttle. But the space shuttle was, to do shit orbiting our own planet. So why the hell do we get out of that? It seems very, very strange to me that we did that and took ourselves out of that when, in the long run, we have to consider space. I mean, we're already doing a lot up there. And basically, we're paying Russia to go up there right now. Why would we do that when we had the technology to do it ourselves? Doesn't make sense. So advancing out into space, it's going to happen. We have to. There's some fear mongering going on about overpopulation, but yeah, overpopulation is going to happen. Straight up, it is going to happen, and that's an issue that we're going to have to deal with. And I know a lot of people say, "Well, there's plenty of room that we can expand to." It's like, okay. Yeah, technically that's true if you just go by square miles and number of people and how much each person could take on. There's issues with that. There's a lot of damn places I would not want to live. I don't want to live out in the middle of a desert, and it's really hard sometimes to stick a house on the side of a mountain. Or Alaska. I mean, I spent 3 years up there, but it sucks to live up there. So it doesn't always work in a lot of places. Also, as people expand the footprint of where we live and keep building houses, and then all the things that have to go along with. Okay, now you have more people. Well, now we need more stores, and we need more restaurants, and places for people to work, and so all that is additional space that gets taken up. All the while, places where we grow our food shrink when we would need it to expand. I mean, there's stuff out there about tearing down the Amazon to put in these soybean farms or soy farms, or whatever other farms they have down there to feed the cattle, that we're going to turn the cattle into hamburger, so that we can have more burgers. I mean, it's a cycle. Well, eventually all that goes away because you have these people that are expanding. So eventually, unless we just because it's a parabola, it's the same thing with any other species on Earth, that it gets to a certain point in population and shit just starts to die off. So it'll eventually get there with humans. The only way to circumvent that without just suddenly plunging is to get off the planets and go populate somewhere else too, which eventually, as we go along, we're going to have to do anyways, because the Earth is not eternal. So, all those aliens coming in, they could be having a problem that we will eventually face. And now we can finally bring it full circle back to the aliens. They could be facing a problem that we are eventually going to face, which is their planet may be nearing extinction, where their star, their sun, could be at that point where it's about to envelop their planet, or maybe the gravitational pull's gotten all quirky or whatever. It doesn't last forever. It eventually gets destroyed. This planet will not always be here. I mean, we think, okay, it's going to be trillions of years from now. Well, yeah, that might be, or billions, or whatever it is. But it is going to happen. And so, it might not happen in your lifetime. It's going to happen in somebody's lifetime. So it eventually has to happen. So maybe some of these aliens are coming here looking for a new home or something like that. And that's something we are eventually going to have to do as well. And considering the way the population is going to keep growing and exploding, we have to consider those things now, I believe. And so coming up with a space force would basically be the protection of colonists out there. At least I'd hope. And it's not to war. So, what do you think of all that? I got to look at the chat to see if there's questions. So what do you think of all that?
Go for it.
Go for it.
Yeah, like I said, I've had my 2 experiences. I don't follow along with politics. I'm all about the ghosts. And the fact that there's been this little twinkle over there in the corner by the boxes.
You've been seeing a twinkle again, huh?
Yeah, that's
They're
what I've been
spying on us.
That's what I've been kind of watching. It's popping up randomly around the boxes over there.
So, Donna says her vote doesn't count anyway. Well, that's... I saw a mention of Rebel down there. I am going to buck the normal trend of every vote counts. It doesn't. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. I mean, your one vote... What you have to do is get a shit ton of votes, okay? One vote doesn't mean dick. And politics aside, okay, I'm going to reveal a bit of myself here that some of you may not like, and I'm sorry, but it's a true story, and it illustrates a point, okay? I still love you. I know you still love me.
No matter what.
No matter what. Okay, in 2000, I really, 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 really did not want Al Gore to become president. It really didn't. So, yes, I supported George W. Bush. And I got him elected. Oh, go ahead and laugh, but it's fucking true. And I'll tell you why. Because I realized that my one vote doesn't mean dick. I'm going to vote Republican, and I'm living in Maryland. Maryland's always blue. I mean, it's just... except for the last time it was red was when Reagan was in office, and everybody freaking voted for Reagan. Literally almost everybody. So Maryland's always going to be a blue state. So me trying to vote in Maryland doesn't mean a thing. So I put together this flyer that I thought might be a little influential. And so I went around my neighborhood with this flyer that I created, dropping it off at people's doorsteps. And then realizing I'm still in fucking Maryland. Getting my neighborhood and the neighborhood next to ours to vote my way doesn't mean dick. Maryland's still going to vote for Al Gore. So I started sending it. I spammed the shit out of all kinds of different like Republican offices all over the freaking country. I got all these different lists and just start emailing everybody. And it started getting used around the country. I got a call from, and I forget his name now. He was the guy that was heading up the Bush campaign in New York. And he's like, what is this flyer and who the hell are you? So I explained my story and what I had done and all that. And he's like, people don't do that. And I'm like, well, I did. And he's like, okay, let me talk to Ken Millman, who was the chairman of Bush's campaign at the time. And of course, became his, whatever the hell at the White House there. Ken Millman signed off on it and they started using the flyer. And I heard a lot of reports and feedback and stuff from all kinds of people, and it was being used really heavily in Florida, which of course is what got George W. Bush elected. So now we've lost half the crowd. I'm sorry. We're going to be down to 2,000 subscribers by the end of the night. But it's adhering to Donna's point that the one vote doesn't matter. If you really want to make a change, if you really want something to happen like that, you have to get a whole shit ton more people involved. Because you're one voice, which is great. You're at least acknowledging that you have a voice and you're trying to put something out there, but you need that one voice to become a much bigger voice. Otherwise it just gets lost in the wind. So that went on a really fucking weird tangent. I did not intend to go there tonight. Holy crap.
So about those aliens.
Yeah. About those. No, well, I mean, that's. Yeah, but you can bring it back to that because you have a lot of people out there, that are, they're coming together and they're trying to be a voice to say, we've had these experiences. We've had these alien experiences. These different things have happened to us. We've witnessed these different things. And yes, there's some space cadets out there. Like, they're gone, and, whatever. There's always some people like that, in whatever organization it is. Unfortunately, when it comes to the aliens, people always point to those people as, well, that's who they all are. But no, there's actually really intelligent, thoughtful, caring people involved in all this stuff, whether it's ghosts, whether it's aliens, whatever it is, all this supernatural stuff that we deal with, fairies, we've seen fairies.
Yeah, I can't say that it is, but I can't say that it isn't either. I believe it is based on what we've been taught to believe they act like.
Yeah.
It doesn't act like anything else I've seen before, and I've seen my share of stuff. It acted like what, I've been taught to think that they act like, so that's what I'm calling it.
There you go.
Until someone can prove that it's something else, then I am just going based on the just based on the difference in the energy, and just based on its behavior, and based on your experience of it, because what you saw was way different than what it was by the time I saw it. So
yeah, because I'd seen it transform. It was something that was transformative, and like with if that was a fairy, okay, we could, people who witness the different alien extraterrestrial activity could be witnessing some of that stuff too. That could be very well something that happens within their species, within their race. And because we don't normally see it here on Earth, it's not something that we regularly observe. A lot of people can't comprehend that. They only comprehend what's right in front of them. And so it's going to take, an alien popping up in front of them and be like, hey, I'm here. But apparently there are reasons why that's not happening so much right now. I mean, some people see the craft fly by. Some people actually see the beings themselves. But sometimes it sounds like a chance encounter. To some others, there's this whole agenda. I don't know, because I'm not that type of insider. I just know that there's 3 8th floors in NSA. But it's all interesting to listen to and to take in, to see what other people's viewpoints are and what their experiences are. To me, it's really interesting, and I think that like we always talk about with history and legends and folklore, there's always a little nugget in there. So even some of these stories that you're kind of like, are you freaking kidding me? I think there's still a little nugget in there, that there's still something that happened. Betty Lange is asking, do you think the UFO metals are better than our knowledge of metal? That's a good question. I mean, they may have other metals that we do not know of yet. Some metals we know for sure are more plentiful in space than here on Earth, like iridium. If you come across iridium on Earth, then you can almost rest assured that it came off of a meteorite, because it just isn't found here. So there's stuff like that. So there may be some other elements out there. A lot of those insiders, what have you, do claim that like a lot of their metal alloys are stronger. Yes, go ahead.
I have a story.
Shana has a story.
I've already told it, I think. But the stuff that was dug up from the cellar, the basement.
Oh, at the cafe. Yeah.
Didn't know what it was, and the stuff that it was encased in was unidentifiable. Couldn't really put a finger on it, so had it sent off to be analyzed, and it gave off EMF. And so that's originally why they sent it off, because it was just burying, a K2, just like,
wow.
What the hell, what is this? No electricity in the cafe at the time. So, it's not like, and nobody had cell phone signal in there, ever. Mm-hmm. If you did, it was a miracle. But,
yeah. You get no self signal.
There is no way. Nobody ever did. So, but the information that came back was that it had the same properties as meteor rock.
There you go. So a meteor rock was at the bottom of the cafe.
Buried in the cellar. About a foot or so under the cellar.
And it was giving off some sort of EMF.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's originally why it was sent off. If it hadn't have done that, it had just been, they just assumed it was some kind of rock, dirt, whatever, covering it. But nothing else around it. But just, if you held it up to that object, it was just like blink, 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 blink.
Right.
I had pictures of what it looked like after the stuff was taken off. It was just some like carving tool or whatever it looked like from, I think the archaeology department said that they thought was, and then like the little screws or whatever, the little box screws or square, back in like the 1800s or so. But just the stuff that it was around it. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Wish I'd have seen that.
Yeah, I have pictures of it somewhere.
I think you've shown me a photo, or at least down there, of everybody down there at the time it was being dug up. I think that's what you've shown me.
Yeah, and it was really cool because the thing that had like a little top or like and it was shaped like a skull. It was really cool. Yeah.
So, Greg Rinkin, I don't think any of the governments are really in power. Well, I mean, there's a lot of talk about, Illuminati, shadow government, all that stuff. That's all conspiracy stuff. Another topic for another day. We'll probably get John D'Souza back on here and talk about that. So we had interesting talk about similar type stuff, because we got into conspiracies with that show. But we also touched on alien UFO stuff. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. We're past our hour, and people are calling it an evening. So it's interesting. Touched on a lot of different things we didn't think we'd get into. If this is my last broadcast, it's been a real treat, and it's been a fun ride. And I wish you all well in the rest of your lives. I'll probably be back in Alaska by tomorrow night. Jen R. All Rogue 7 says, watch the other stream. I had similar light flashing thing. Interesting. More twinkles, it sounds like. All right. So next week, Edge of the Rabbit Hole, Rebecca Smucker will be talking about past life regression. I don't know yet for Inside the Upside Down. That's what's on tap. So it'll be interesting, and hopefully our frontier issues will... And we're just going to have to, I don't know, do something about the neighborhood, cut everybody's power or something. Like, all right, it's ours. It's ours for right now. Because, yeah, it was like just right at about, I mean, it happened with Carl last week. We got, like, once it got halfway through his show, we were pretty well fine. Tonight it was like a little bit longer with Chris Peters, probably about 40 minutes, and then we were fine. You know, so it's like something's just turning off, and then we're back on. Weird. So Kathy Silney told Mike, when they abduct you, send us a sign, air a show with them. Yeah. Like, hey guys, it's show night, come on, you're gonna sit down with me. We're gonna interview. And Betty Lange is saying happy anniversary. Thank you. Yes, 3 years tonight. So all right, everybody. Let's go ahead and do the shout-outs. Donna saying the issues are ours when we bring on a guest. We've had it perfectly fine. We've brought on a guest, too. So it's been the last couple of weeks. Have been crazy. All right. Did we have any? Nope, we didn't. So, all right. All right. So, Donna, thank you for Cheshire catting the chat. Appreciate that. We'll go through the participants list here. So we have Beat 3 Airspace, one of our Deep Down the Rabbit Hole Patreon patrons. So Deep Down the Rabbit Hole Patreon patrons is Tom McNicholas, Beat 3 Airspace, BD Flint and Zippy Davis, Pamela Queen, Joe Chandler, Dustin Samario, and Andrew Cox. Thank you guys all very much for being Deep Down the Rabbit Hole Patreon patrons. You got to hear another, as far as like a behind-the-scenes thing, for those that are $3 and up. You got to get an interesting little story about the Preacher's Room. Well, it was inspired by the Preacher's Room at Rhodes Hotel. But yeah, a story I haven't told on here before is out there on Patreon. So then we got Betty Lange. Thank you very much. Kathy Ciliento. Thank you as well. David Buchholz. Thanks for joining us again tonight. Debbie 08, thank you as well. Greg Grinkin, thank you. Jen R. All Rogue 7, thanks once again for being out here. Robert Hanna, thank you as well. The Haglin, good to see you again. Tim Schoen, thank you as well. And there's Zippy Davis. All right, I'll check back over here. Is that Australia? The A and the dollar sign? 2777. Super chat for Jen R. All Rogue 7. Thank you very much. I think Australian is AU. Jen, where is that? A and then the dollar sign. That might be Australia. Usually it's AU. But well, thank you very much. Absolutely appreciate that. And so we have a super chat superstar, Jen. All right.
Ooh, hashtag.
Yep, Australia. Yes. Okay, so it is Australia. Okay, very cool. All right, and I'll look here for any last-minute shout-outs that might be hanging. Jen Corgus. Okay, see? I know it's not all-inclusive because there's one that wasn't in the list.
Is Tillery out there lurking?
Yeah, I don't know. Tillery's probably lurking. He was probably watching Oak Island earlier. Oak Island. Yeah. All right. So that's it, everybody. We will catch you next week. Y'all have a great rest of the evening. Till next time.